All right. If you guys can turn to page 33. Page 33, I'll put that at the top here. Oh my God. Okay. We're going to be working through basically, we're going to be using unit circle, but I want us to be able to kind of explore strategies where we can find values without having to go through, and fill everything out from unit circle. We can just strategically get the values that we need and not have to do unit circle for every little problem that we come across. So it's going to kind of help us to try to reach that point. Okay. But it seems like most of you guys are doing pretty well with understanding in terms of filling out the unit circle. So now we're just going to try to talk about how we can find values a little bit more efficiently. Okay. Okay, so let me read this here. It says, so to find values of trig functions anywhere on the unit circle, first we want to determine the quadrant of the given angle and the reference angle. Okay, so that's going to be helpful for us to quickly get to what we need to find. Give the coordinates, check the signs. So I'll make sure that we understand the order pairs in each quadrant and also the signs that they produce. And then we'll evaluate the trig function. Okay. Remember that if coordinates of any point on the unit circle are x, y, meaning that if we think of all the main order pairs in terms of x and y, then we can really just looking at each order pair, we can figure out cosine of any angle or the ratio of any trig function. So cosine is just basically your x coordinate. Sine of theta is your y coordinate. Tangent is basically your sine over cosine, or we can just say y over x. Okay, so those are the big three. Secant, cosecant, and cotangent, they are just reciprocals of the one above them. So secant is just the reciprocal of cosine. Whatever cosine is, I'm just going to flip cosine, so 1 over x. Cosecant, I'll take whatever sine is and flip that, 1 over sine, or 1 over y. And then cotangent, I can just flip tangent, or I can just think of it like x over y. Okay. So if we want to find any ratio of trig functions around the unit circle, we don't want to have to go through and fill out every little part, every part of the unit circle. I'll actually do that on Wednesday, but we're going to eventually get to the point where we can just find a value quickly. So we understand that everything is just going to come from these three order pairs in the first quadrant, right? They're just variations of these. So we have pi over 3, which is 60 degrees. You got pi over 4, which is 45 degrees. And you have pi over 6, which is 30 degrees. Right? And if we can just fill out those order pairs, these are the only values we have to be able to fill out. Okay. So starting at the upper left corner, we're just going to start with 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All the numerators will have square roots. Technically 1 as well, but we leave that out because we know square root of 1 can be written just as 1. Okay. We also know each of the every quadrant will have their own signs. So we know first quadrant is positive, positive. Second quadrant is negative, positive. Right, negative, negative, and positive, negative. Okay. So here's a quick way for us to identify values without having to fill out the rest of the circle. So we want to find the reference angle. Okay, so it's going to be most helpful when we're dealing with degrees. So cosine of 120, let's think about that. Which quadrant is that in? Second quadrant, okay. Reference angle, so if we just think about cosine of 120, we know 120 is in the second quadrant. Reference angle, we always subtract involving the x-axis. So the closest x-axis, yeah, is 180. 180 minus 120 is 60. So if you know that your reference angle is 60, you know that you're just going to be looking at the order pair for pi over 3. Right, pi over 3 is associated with 60 degrees. And we just have to, let's list out the coordinates for something in the second quadrant. So negative 1/2 followed by square root of 3 over 2. Okay, so now that you have the coordinate in front of you, we can figure out cosine of this angle, right? So which coordinate do we look at for cosine? X, yeah. So cosine of 120 would just be negative 1/2. So you know you're just dealing with variations of these order pairs. You just have to figure out which quadrant it's in, adjust the signs, and then be able to pull the appropriate x or y value or reciprocals or combinations. Okay. So I think with degrees, you definitely want to spend a little bit of time figuring out the reference angle. That's going to be helpful. But I think if you're dealing with radians, it's going to be very easy to spot. Anything with a 3 in the denominator, you know you're dealing with pi over 3. Anything with a 4 in the denominator, you know you're dealing with that middle order pair. Anything with a 6 in the denominator, you know which reference angle you're dealing with. So it's a lot easier actually when you're dealing with radians. So quadrant, tangent of 4 pi over 3. Which quadrant is this in? Yeah, we know 3 over 3 was 1 pi. We know 4 over 3 is slightly more than 1, so it's going to be somewhere in that third quadrant. Reference angle, you see that 3 in the denominator, so easy to spot. We know we're dealing with these order pairs. We just have to adjust the signs. What are the signs going to be? Third quadrant? Negative, negative. So how do we find tangents using these two values? Yeah, y over x. So we take the y value, we divide it by the x value. You can cover up the 2 because you know the 2 will just end up canceling each other out. So I'm left with negative square root of 3 over negative 1. Yeah, just positive square root of 3. You don't have to go through the trouble writing it writing the step. You can jump directly to that. However, if there's a radical in the denominator, you do have to go through that additional step of rationalizing your denominator. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so we're just exploring ways where we can find values on unit circle quickly and not having to fill it out every time we want to look for an angle. Okay, so sine of 315, which quadrant is that in? Fourth. So I'm just going to do a quick angle 315. Make sure that if you're finding the reference angle that you're never involving 90 or 270, okay? Never involve them. That you're always using either 180 or 360. So what's the reference angle here? Yep, 45, right? So that helps, right? Being able to look at that reference angle quickly, and then that way you can know which order pair or which variation that you're dealing with. Okay, so what are my signs going to be in the fourth quadrant? Positive, negative, yeah. Okay, so then we go back, sine of 315. Which one do we choose? Or which one do we use? Yep, just the y value, right? So sine of 315, the ratio of opposite over hypotenuse is just going to be negative root 2 over 2. Okay. Any questions? Okay, go ahead and try 4, 5, and 6. And then I'll get you started on page 34. Okay, and it's also good to, I mean, if this helps, as a reminder, in terms of sine, cosine, and tangent, in terms of which are positives and negatives, you know everything, all trig functions are positive in the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, only sine is positive, sine and cosecant. Third quadrant, only tangent and cotangent are positive. And in fourth quadrant, only cosine and its reciprocal, so cosine and secant are positive. Okay, check your answers there. Here, this is a little bit clearer here. So after you find the order pairs, you're just going to look to see how can I use my order pair to get the value that I want, right? So it's either involving x, y, reciprocal, or combination of them. Yes? Say it again? Number 5, okay. So number 5, let's see. Okay, so number 5, we have cosine of 210. So first thing we have to understand is where's that 210 located? It's located in the third quadrant, so we can draw that out. And once you have that in the third quadrant, you know that to find the reference angle, you always want to subtract from either 180 or 360, depending on which is closer. Never involve 270, never involve 90. And so 210 and 180 has a reference angle of 30 degrees. So once you understand that you're dealing with 30 degrees, you know that you're dealing with the order pair of root 3 over 2 and 1/2. Third quadrant, both order pairs, both your values are negative. And then cosine is just the x value. So make sense? Okay. Okay. Any questions? 4 through 6? Right, right. Okay, so we can do another example here. Let me do this number 7 here. If I want to find cosine of 270, okay, cosine 270, quadrant is really not going to, we really can't say which quadrant it is because it's landing right on the axis. There's no reference angle to represent, but the coordinate, we know the coordinate for 270 is 1 unit down on the y-axis, so we know our coordinate is 0, -1. Right? And then we know cosine is just the x value, so cosine 270 is just going to be equal to 0. All right, so basically you're just going to target that order pair. Once you get that order pair, then you can fill out. I know that, yeah, I want to go over some of the setup on the next page because some of these angles are not going to have a reference angle and quadrant associated with it. Okay. Any questions with this page before I start you off on 34? Okay, so here's page 34.
Is it the same thing? Just like...
Yeah, same thing. They're just organized in this chart here. So I'm gonna get. I want to do 1 or 2 with you, and then that way you have a model to kind of follow for the rest of the problems. So let's see. Let's do this. Let's do the 1 or 2 of these together. 300 degrees. Which quadrant is this in? Fourth quadrant.
With an angle of 60.
Good, right? You notice in the fourth quadrant, reference angle, we got to subtract from 360. So when I say check signs, that just means, right, just say what the x and y values are in terms of their signs. Coordinate, we understand that order pair is going to be involving 1/2 first, followed by root 3 over 2. We got to adjust the signs. And once you have the coordinate in front of us, it's a lot easier to interpret, right? Sine of 300 is just going to be equal to what? Yeah, negative. Yeah. Okay, I'll do the second one with you as well, and then I'll do pi over 2. So 7 pi over 6, which quadrant is this in? Third, right? 6 over 6 is basically pi. 7 over 6 is going to be a little bit more than pi, so we know that's going to be in the third quadrant. Reference angle, this is easy to spot, just what? Yeah, if it's in radians, it's easy to spot, right? You just see that denominator and just copy that. Third quadrant, signs, negative, negative. Just copy down your order pair for pi over 6. Cosecant. All right. How do we involve the order pairs here to find cosecant? Okay. Which order pair do we choose? Okay. And what do we do with the y value?
It's 1 over y. So.
Yeah. So what's cosecant going to be then? -2. Right. The sign stays. We just take the fraction and we just flip it.
Do we use calculators?
No calculator. Yeah, no calculator. Okay. All right, one more. Let me go over one involving pi over 2. So pi over 2 for quadrants doesn't live in a quadrant, so we just say that it is a positive on the positive x-axis. Sorry, positive y-axis. Reference angle. We'll just say that it doesn't cross it off. It doesn't really apply. And then check signs. There is no sign for the x. It's only the y that's positive. So it's a little bit weird with the way that we write the signs. And then we know that pi over 2 is just we just go up 1 unit. All right, so secant. Which order pair, which value do we look at for secant? The x, right? And what do we do with that x? Yeah, it's going to be flipped, right? So initially it's 0 over 1. So if you flip it, it becomes 1 over 0. And how do we interpret 1 over 0?
1.
Undefined.
Oh, undefined.
Yeah. So if you have 0 in the denominator, that's undefined. If you have 0 in the numerator, that's just 0. Okay. All right, any questions?
Can you do the last one?
Last one? Okay.
Pi.
So pi is in the negative x-axis. No reference angle. The sign is going to be negative and 0. Okay. What's my order pair with pi? -1, 0. Okay. So how do we, what do we do to find cosecants? Yeah, focus on the y. Flip it. What does that become?
Undefined.
That's right, undefined.